Huh?
That old geezer. Safe my ass.
You look like you're having fun. Just what are you doing?
Huh? Ah, Naomi. Perfect timing.
You seem relaxed. The quarantine's got everyone in a fit.
Yeah, I know. I just escaped from the middle of that mess.
Huh? What do you mean?
Well, let's talk inside. I can't let them find me here.
Unbelievable. And so you brought these bones with you?
Well, yeah. Can you reconstruct them?
This is nonsense. How do you know this tells us anything?
I don't. But you'll do it, right? There might be something.
I can see arguing is a waste of time. Fine.
All right. I'll reconstruct the body. You take the head.
I can see why your marriage didn't last very long. The devil.
Huh? What? Is that your voodoo hotline again?
Let's get started now. I'll take this room.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm counting on you, Doctor.
The devil, huh? What did you see?
There you are, Dr. Kimishima. I've been looking for you.
Well, well. What are you doing in a place like this?
Don't be that way. I could be pretty useful, you know.
I'm sure you could, if you told me what the government knows.
I don't really know anything. The army's on the move, though.
Fine, whatever. You can at least help me with this.
Yes, of course. That's why I came.
There's no telling who these things belong to.
Right. Say, who was here a moment ago? Friendly guy.
An old friend. Jealous?
No, that's not what I meant.
I'm joking, little guy.
Oh, I see.
Our goal is to determine who this person is. Sex, race, age, and the time and cause of death.
That's going to be difficult with no additional info.
I'm well aware of that. Still, we'll have to do our best. First, we'll have to reconstruct the skull. It's not very likely to help us determine the cause of death.
Doctor, the pieces may be contaminated. Use protective gear. I'll get you a sterilized suit and a mask.
Yes, thank you. A skeleton kept hidden in the bowels of Yosemite. Who are you? Where'd you come from? Let's begin. Show me how your light flickered out. All the fragments that were given to me have been placed. Does this mean there's a missing piece of bone? In any case, the skull can't be fully put together in this state. Unless the missing section is found, there's nothing more that can be done to this skull. It's a bloodstain. Could it belong to this individual? If it was caused by physical trauma, then there's something unusual about it. That would be... Yes. There's no damage to the clothing. Either there's a reason why, or this blood didn't come from this person. Is this a syringe? And drugs? If this skeleton belonged to someone with a criminal history, whoever this is might be kept in the FBI's criminal database. If I ask Little Guy about this, it might be easy to find out just who this person is. Little Guy? I need you to analyze something.
Yes, of course. What's this?
I found this in the deceased's personal articles. I get the feeling that it may be drugs.
I see. So you want me to run this through our criminal database?
You're good at picking up on these things.
This is the kind of thing that we do at the FBI, after all. I'll look into what's in these ampules and see if the syringe has been used. It's going to take a while, so you'll have to give me time.
Of course. I'll keep investigating the corpse. The missing area of skull is the section from the mental tubercle to the angle. Chloe had swallowed pieces of human bone. Don't tell me. So it was like I thought. After Chloe swallowed the bone fragments, the mysterious foci appeared in her body. There's something in this bone, some kind of pathogen.
Oh, Dr. Kimishima, that man came by a moment ago.
That man? Who are you talking about?
The, friendly guy. He said something about having finished reconstructing the body.
Ah, you mean Gabe. All right, now we can observe the corpse as a whole.
I've gone ahead and put the skull with the rest of the skeleton. You can look at them whenever you like.
Good, you're on top of things. Can you tell me what you've observed from it?
Oh, right. There wasn't much to get from the body, though. The person was roughly 185 centimeters tall. A histologic examination of the bone detected 15 types of amino acids remaining. There was also a very high concentration of nitrogen. I've sent the results of the analysis to your computer. Please check it out when you need to.
Good, I'll look into it. It's possible to examine the body now, too. What is this damage to the joint? It's hard to think that an external force could cause this kind of effect. This. The femur is completely broken. But why? In the human skeleton, the femur is... Yes, it was the same in the case when that girl Veronica was thrown off the bridge. But the femur is the strongest among all the bones in the human body. What could have broken this so easily? What's this? These scratches on the bone look like an area that's been shaved off. Looks like I need to look into what caused this damage. Little guy, I need you to analyze something.
Of course. Is this a bloodstain?
Right. I need you to check the skeleton's DNA and see if that blood came from the same person.
No problem. Give me a moment.
Do you have the results yet, little guy?
Hey, don't rush me, please. The results just came in. It seems that the DNA matches. The blood's from the same person.
Huh, I see. If that's the case, what kind of hemorrhaging is it? If this hemorrhaging wasn't caused by physical trauma, then... Little guy, can I bother you for a moment?
Yes, of course. How may I help you?
I want your opinion on this fractured femur.
Oh, okay. Just a second.
Well, anything?
Well... What's this? This bone is hollow on the inside. I'm not surprised it broke if it was like this.
Did this fracture occur while the person was still alive?
I can't say about the fracture, but the loss in bone density must have occurred while the person lived.
It seems safe to assume that the fracture was caused by the decrease in bone density then. Hey, little guy, can you analyze this marking here?
Yes, of course. Let's see.
How does it look? Can you learn anything from it?
Yes, first of all, the damage was done recently. There's no discoloration on the bone tissue in the area that had been damaged.
I see. Does this mean that whatever happened here occurred after the person died?
That's right. I don't think it could have happened any other way. From looking at the damaged area, it seems the bone had been shaved away using a tool, like a router.
A router? The only reason I would expect that to happen would be... That's right. The staff at USAMRIID was using this bone for research. There's a good chance they shaved a sample from the bone in order to study it.
Yes, you need small fragments for the high-detail analysis. That's likely what happened to this bone.
Wait a second.
What's wrong?
The researcher at USAMRIID was infected while he was studying this bone. Using a router on the bone would cause particles of pulverized bone to be ejected in the air. If the researcher came down with the disease after performing that procedure, then... Little guy, I need this damage analyzed.
Right away. This...
What's the matter?
Nothing. A bone abrasion caused this damage.
Bone abrasion? What do you mean?
Normally, wherever bones meet, there's a layer of fibrocartilage. In this case, the knee, that pad is known as the meniscus. That prevents damage like this from occurring in most people's bodies. The signs of wear I see here are consistent with the bones grinding together.
So these abrasions here were apparently caused by... Indeed. This would mean that the meniscus was lost while the person was still alive and moving. But what would cause this to happen? Abnormal decrease in bone density with the lack of cartilage. What we can deduce from these two events is... Yes, both these conditions indicate a weakening of the skeletal system. Furthermore, I believe that both these processes happened while the person was still alive. If these conditions allow us to infer anything, it would be that this person was severely debilitated by the time of death. Hey, little guy, could you analyze something for me?
Sure. Huh? Haven't I already analyzed this for you, Dr. Kimishima?
Yes, but I want to know more details.
Like what?
We know now that the bloodstain comes from the same person as these bones, but there was no obvious damage to the deceased's clothing. Can you investigate in detail into what kind of hemorrhaging would have caused that bloodstain?
I see. All right. Can you give me some time for that, please?
Of course. I'll be counting on you. I need this bone analyzed, little guy. Be careful with it. There's a danger of infection.
Oh, can you warn me a little sooner next time? Give me a moment, please. Let's see here.
Well, did you find anything?
No, I've checked it out, but there's nothing especially unusual about it.
Is that so? That's odd.
What's so odd about that?
This is the bone that Chloe swallowed. When she did, the same black focus that the patients in the quarantine zone had showed up inside her body. According to what Gabe said, the serviceman who had been investigating this bone So, in other words, the pathogen lurking in this bone is... Right. This bone carries a virus that triggers the hemorrhagic fever.
A virus? This is just a skeleton. A virus requires living cells from its host in order to multiply. So, this virus not only survives the host's death, but can continue within a skeletonized corpse.
Can you really say that such a thing is impossible?
But...
That's not like you. Calm down, little guy. Everything we've seen up until now has taught us something. That there are diseases out there in the world that defy all our understanding and what we think of as common sense.
All right. Let's assume that it is a virus. That doesn't mean that all the mysteries have been solved. How does this virus live inside this skeleton? And why aren't we infected with the hemorrhagic fever after we've handled the bones?
I really can't say at this point. It's possible this person was infected with the virus, or perhaps the skeleton had been contaminated after death. In any case, we'll need to continue investigating this in more detail.
Right.
However, I can explain why you and I haven't contracted the hemorrhagic fever.
What? How?
Well, according to what Gabe was told by the assistant secretary, that's right. They concluded that an airborne infection was impossible. This was because the infection wasn't spreading within USAMRIID. If that's the case, it's unlikely that the virus is dispersed through a respiratory vector.
Then how does it spread?
Well, in Chloe's case, the foci were located in areas where... Indeed. The black foci only existed in areas that the bone fragments were in contact with. Taking that into consideration, this virus's route of infection is... That was careless. Yes. In other words, the virus only has a limited means of transmission.
I see. That explains the cat's case, at least. But what about the USAMRIID researcher? I highly doubt that he'd be chewing on bones.
Good point. There must be an explanation for how that other serviceman was infected as well. That's right. Now we're starting to see how the serviceman at USAMRIID was infected as well. The virus rests within that skeleton. The route of infection is... Yes, it's when it comes in contact with a mucous membrane. Reaching a mucous membrane within the mouth or body causes the virus to infect that person. But there's no way that a researcher would lick or swallow a bone. However, the USAMRIID staff did collect a bone sample for their research. In order to obtain that sample, the researcher... Right. He used a router to shave away a portion of the bone. This is likely what caused the researcher to be infected. The reason for this is... Yes, shaving bone with a router causes particles of bone dust to fly out into the air. It's likely that the researcher inhaled some of that powder while he was working. The powder then carried the infection and made contact with the mucous membranes. That is my hypothesis to explain the infection of the Usamarad researcher. Is this a key? For what, though? Maybe little guy will be able to find out something about it. Hey, little guy, can you tell me what this key is for?
A key? Let's see. This is a very unique key. It involves magnetism.
Magnets? What could a key like that be used for?
Probably a safe or something else high security. Oh, there's a number on it as well.
I see. Can you find out where whatever it goes to is located?
I can look into it, but
What's wrong? Is there a problem?
we don't have a clue where this key came from. It'll take a long time to find out any specifics about where this key goes.
That's fine. It's still better than me trying to find this out by myself, right?
Well, we are a nationwide organization. Fine, I'll take the key.
I'll let you handle this then.
Dr. Kimishima, the analysis of the syringe is complete.
The syringe. The one that was in the case?
Oh, yes. It's about that. Interferon, acyclovir, ribavirin, lamivudine.
Slow down a second. What are you talking about?
It's the medicines that were confirmed to be in the syringe and the ampules.
All that was in there?
Seriously, I don't understand. Every antiviral drug on record is in this list.
Antiviral drugs.
There was even an ampule of Ashvins in there, too.
Ashvins?
It's a medicine that hasn't been fully authorized by the FDA. It's an excellent antiviral drug, but there were some problems with side effects.
Huh. Just what were these reported side effects?
Okay, let's see. Ashvins is an antiviral drug. It draws on the patient's calcium to suppress viral activities. If used in excess, the subject will become calcium deficient. The body then draws calcium from the bones and it leads to all sorts of complications.
A drug that robs calcium from the bones.
Well, that isn't its purpose, of course, but that is what happens.
I see. Something bothers me about this, though. The deceased had a large amount of antiviral drugs in his possession, along with a dangerous, unapproved drug that caused calcium deficiency in the human body. Yes, it seems that these can be used together. The large amounts of antiviral drugs found in the corpse's personal effects, and an ampule of Ashvins, a dangerous antiviral reagent. The reason that Ashvins was never approved was because indeed, Ashvins consumes large amounts of calcium from the human body. A 50-kilogram person's body contains roughly 1 kilogram of calcium. 99% of that is in the bones and teeth. In other words, the side effect of the Ashvins drugs is yes. What first comes to mind would be an abnormal decrease in bone density. Considering the information that's been gathered so far, this person likely administered the Ashvins drug to yes, themselves. The first piece of evidence supporting that is Concentrate. The complete fracturing of the femur, the strongest bone in the human body. Continuing on, the second point would be yes, the loss of the meniscus in the left knee. Thus, we can deduce that the person's weakened skeletal system was due to the side effects of the Ashvin's drug. I have a bad feeling about this. Yes, it seems that these can be combined. These bones passed on the viral hemorrhagic fever via contact with mucous membranes. And whoever this was, they had been taking large doses of antiviral drugs along with a dangerous unapproved one. It's likely that this person was... Yes, this individual had been infected with some kind of virus. That virus itself was...
If that's the case, then the cause of death was...
I should stop making conjectures. I need some hard evidence to back these theories up. Hemorrhagic fever causes hemorrhaging from all over the body, along with other various conditions. If we could find traces of that disease...
Hemorrhaging from all over.
Is something wrong?
Oh, well, we just received the results from the analysis. It says that the bloodstain on the person's clothing contained traces of saliva.
Saliva? If that's the case, then that bloodstain was... Yes, it came through the mouth, likely by being vomited. That would explain why there were no signs of damage to the person's clothing. The blood stain on the clothing was due to the person vomiting blood. The viral hemorrhagic fever causes bleeding from all over, both internally and externally. Vomiting blood is one of the signs of this disease as well. This person died of viral hemorrhagic fever. The evidence that I'm drawing that conclusion from is... That's right. If this person was still alive after having had an attack of vomiting blood, I highly doubt that they'd go on without doing something about the bloody clothes. Thus, the traces of vomited blood on the clothing indicates that this person died soon after this attack.
We finally figured out the cause of death.
Yes, long before the pandemic that is currently raging broke out. This person caught and died of the viral hemorrhagic fever that caused this quarantine. Who in the world are you?
Dr. Kimishima, if I may?
Go on.
I've noticed something.
I'm all ears.
Well, this antiviral reagent, Ashvin's, it was rejected by the FDA for its dangerous side effects. That, along with the large amount of antiviral drugs, these things aren't available to the general public.
You have a point. Someone who would have access to these things would be... Indeed. It would be someone who has the knowledge of these new drugs and their effects on viruses. It would also be someone who has the authority to obtain such information from the medical community.
That's what I think. Does that help a little?
It's fantastic. Let's move on to the next step. How can we identify this individual, little guy?
But all we have is the skeleton and personal effects.
That shouldn't be a problem. Or is my opinion of you overrated? If this person is in the health profession, then the FBI database should have an entry. By studying the bones, we can narrow down just who this person was.
Why'd you ask me if you already knew the answer to your own question?
We don't have time for complaining. Look up details about skeletons in our forensics database. Send what you find over to my computer immediately.
Yikes. Give me a moment. There, I found them. You want me to send them over to you, right?
Now it's time for the grand reveal. Let's compare the skeleton's characteristics with our information. Then we can confirm just who this person is. Fifteen types of amino acids were detected in the skeleton. There was a very high concentration of nitrogen as well. If I compare this information with the materials available, that's right. We can assume that this person died somewhere around 2 years ago. Someone had this disease 2 years ago? Long before this pandemic began? This fact alone won't get us anywhere. But if I consider it in light of other information, there's no damage to the pelvis. I should look at its shape just in case. We can determine something from the shape of the pelvis. The skull has triangular orbital bones. Is there any information that can be deduced by the shape of the orbital bones? The cranial sutures have begun to fuse, but they aren't completely fused yet. This is what's causing the cranial sutures to resemble broken lines instead of solid ones. I recall that the cranial sutures can tell something about a body. An individual's gender can be determined by the shape of the pelvis. According to the materials at hand, this skeleton's gender is yes, the pelvis is heart-shaped. Thus, we can deduce that this skeleton is male. That's right. A person's age at death can be determined from the state of the cranial sutures. The cranial sutures here have partially fused, indicating that this person's age was yes, the fusing is consistent with that of a person in their 50s. In other words, it means that this person was around 50 years old at the time of death. The German physician Blumenbach established a distinction of 5 major branches of human anatomy. One point mentioned in determining a person's race by skeletal features is the shape of the orbital bones. Comparing this with the materials at hand, this skeleton's race is Indeed. This skull has the characteristics of a Caucasian. A Caucasian male in his 50s who died 2 years ago and was familiar with viruses. All the information we need has been gathered. Now we'll be able to figure out whose remains these truly are. We couldn't identify this body after all. But there is an important fact that I understand now. First, let's sort out what we do know. We'll talk later. First is the time since death. The card with that is... Yes, the nitrogen and amino acids in the bones prove that. Remember, the body's soft tissue was gone before it was found. This suggests that the body wasn't underwater or buried. Next, I have the card stating the gender of the body. Correct. The shape of the pelvis, the face, and bones prove that. However, he had a thin build. He could hardly be muscular. Next, the age. This card tells our findings. Yes, the cranial sutures have fused with age. This proves that this person was at least in his 50s. It's possible to determine his race as well. This card shows my conclusion based on the evidence. Racial differences are mainly exhibited in skull shape. The eye sockets, cheekbones, nose ridge, it's clear. Our next clue is his occupation. Now, this is only speculation. But I believe this card shows what he did for a living. Yes, if the items belong to him, he was in medicine. In addition, it's likely that he worked in pathology. Now then, what was the cause of his untimely demise? This card shows that reason. A virus living within a corpse long after the host dies. I don't want to believe it, but bones don't lie. The virus passes into the mucous membranes on contact. He died like the man Gabe diagnosed. Hemorrhagic fever. He understood what was happening. He knew why he died. He knew, and it shows in the last words he had to say.
My son, forgive me. I was enticed by the devil.
That is the truth, illuminated by the light of this life. With this in mind, I can use the data to find an individual. He's...
Hey, you listening? Where are you going?
Just be quiet and follow me. We need to talk to the chief. Chief, I'd like to speak with you.
What did you say?
It may be hard to believe, but listen to me, please. The bones Gabe came here with contained the infectious virus. But since the infection is not carried by air, the chances of these bones being a source of pandemic is low. However, they may still be a clue to finding a solution.
I can't believe the two of you could find out so much.
No, this is just a coincidence. Still, Dr. Tachibana should be done with a biopsy on the same virus.
Vector of infection's unknown, but we've ID'd it. You think we'll make it in time?
It's near hopeless. The disease advances too rapidly. The infected will all die before we finish the DNA analysis.
Damn it. Isn't there any other lead we can follow?
This isn't a clue, but I have one more thing I must report.
You must report?
I compared the reconstructed bones to our database. Only one person was a match for the data we had.
Who is it?
Him?
Yes, Albert Sart, a professor of virology, who vanished after the Cumberland College incident.